Hey, so g'day team. I think I'm going to kick off with 5 retrieval questions. So here we go. Okay, there's your 5 questions. Give yourselves 5 minutes and check back in to see how you went. All right, so let's see how you went with these 5 questions. All right, now the first one, these are great. I'll call them retrieval questions because that's exactly what we're doing. We're retrieving, yeah, some old work, and what this helps us do is to really bed down those memories and there's memory traces in these particular areas. So what have we got here? We've got fractions, we're multiplying, we've got a negative times a negative, quite a bit going on here. So your mind, your brain must be buzzing with oh, what's going on. Now negative times a negative, that's a positive. So I know the outcome is going to be positive. Let's head over this side and let's work this out. The -6/5, I'm multiplying fractions. So do I need to worry about a common denominator? No, sorry, I do not. What I need to worry about is simplifying by finding, oh, that's strange, that's a pencil. By finding a common factor and dividing by that common factor. There it is. Go back to my green pen because that's the one I like. -3 times -3 is 9. 5 times 2 is 10. So 9/10 is my answer. Give yourself a big fat tick if that's what you've earned. Okay, next one. Oh, now I'm adding fractions, different denominators. Also, I'm thinking, oh, I better get them into the same language. Fifths and quarters. How about we go with twentieths? Twentieths. Okay, so 1/5 becomes, well, what do? I'm timesing by 4, so I times by 4, times by 4, times by 4. So I've got 4/20ths here. What am I doing with the 4? I'm timesing by 5, so do the same with the -1. I've got -5/20ths. So 4/20ths plus -5/20ths. Well, what's happening here? 4 add -5. I am at -1/20. There's my answer. Okay, 9/25ths is a decimal. Well, that would be much better if it was written over 100. So times 4 there, times 4 there. 9 fours are 36 over 100. So I have 0.36 as my answer. Convert 13.25% to a decimal. Percent means divide by 100. So move the decimal point 2 to the left. My answer is 0.1325. And finally, find 60% of 60. 60 over 100, 60% of times 60 over 1. Get out my simplifying pencil, get rid of a couple of zeros. Oh, there's another pair of zeros. I must be done. 6 times 6 is 36, folks. So, how'd you go? Hopefully you've done okay there. If you're getting some of these wrong, doesn't matter. It's what we're doing. Retrieval is difficult. It's a bit clunky sometimes because it's work that was done a little while back. But in digging around in your memories and getting this stuff back, you are improving your understanding and your knowledge in these areas. And that's really what we want to be doing. Okay, so let's move on to today's class. And what we're doing today is heading. So what we are doing in this screencast, in this lesson today, is we're increasing and decreasing by a percentage. Now, this is probably the most, this is the application of percentages you see most. This has got huge practical value. So when you go shopping, this is what you see. Take 25% off all prices. All right, so that's decreasing by a percentage. Sometimes you see a tax added to a good or a service, and that tax might be 15%. So you might have to add 15% to the cost of something. That's increasing by a percentage. I'm going to show you two ways of increasing and decreasing by a percentage. See which one you like. Okay, so we're in the middle of percentages. There's quite a bit going on. And yesterday we were looking at expressing one quantity of another as a percentage. And we also looked at finding a percentage of a quantity. So we're going to use that second type as finding percentage of a quantity with one of our methods. So let's have a look at an example, and I'll write that out. So here's our example: increase $160 by 40%. These examples are often going to be money examples because that is what that's where you see this stuff most often. Okay, so I'm going to show you two ways. First way, perhaps the one that's most intuitive. If you think, oh, how am I going to do this? You probably would do this. You'd probably go and find 40% of 160, which is work we did yesterday. We were finding percentage of quantities. So we'd find 40% of 160. We worked out what that is, and that would be the actual increase, and then we'd add that to the 160, and there's our final figure. So that'd be method one. I'm going to split the page in two because we're going to solve this two ways. All right, so method one, and there's going to be a method two. See which one you like. Okay, method one. So method one will be to find 40% of $160. Right, that's the first thing we'll do. Find 40% of 160. So let's get to that. Let's do that. So find 40% of 160. That's 40%, literally 40%, 40 out of 100. Of means times 160. Here we go. 40% of 160. Okay. So let's do some slash and burn here. Get rid of the zeros where it's appropriate. Look at that. Dividing by 10, we're back to 4 times 16. What is 4 times 16? Nice little way of doing this. Maybe you don't know what 4 times 16 is, but you know what 4 times 8 is. And 8's half of 16, so you can do 4 8s, 32, and then double it for 64. How's that? So that's 64. There's our magic figure. That's the increase. Okay, I'm finding 40% of 160. I found 64. That doesn't answer my question. My question says increase 160 by 40%. So this, if I left this as my answer, I've gone backwards. I started 160. I'm at 64. This is my increase amount. So what I do now is I add this. I add, in this case, $64 to my 160 that I started with, and that will be my result. Okay, so is that my, yeah. So therefore, what is that? That is $160 plus $64. That gets me $224. Okay, so there we are. I've increased 160 by 40%, and I've got $224. How did we do it? Well, we just found 40% of 160, that was 64, and we added that on to the 160, got me 224. Great. Okay, let's have a look at method two. Now, method two just looks at it slightly differently. It says, okay, I want to increase 160 by 40%. Now, I'm going to consider this as a percentage of 160 questions. So let me, if I found 100% of 160, don't write this down. If I just found 100% of $160, what would I get? Well, I'd just be on $160, wouldn't I? No change. So if I want to increase by 40%, that's effectively saying, find me 140% of $160. So what I want is to find 140% of $160. That will give me my magical result, the one I want. I want to increase $160 by 40%. Effectively, what I'm saying is find me 140% of $160. And that's based around the idea that 100% of something is just the number itself, no change. If I want to increase by a certain percentage, then I'm finding 110% or 120% of that number. I'm increasing by 10, increasing by 20, in this case, increasing by 40, so I want 140% of it. And you guessed it, if I'm decreasing, then I want to take that off 100%. So if I'm decreasing by 20%, well, I want to take 80% of that number. We'll come to a decrease example in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this now. So this is method two. Method two is, rather than finding 40% of $160 and adding it on, I'm going to find 140% of $160, and that will be my answer. I don't have two things to do. I don't have to find one thing and add to the other. This will be my answer. All right, let's get to it. I'll show you how it works. 140%, that's how that looks, of $160. All right, here we go. Let's do our little simplifying here. How are you going with this? We're just popping off pairs. You see what I did? One pair, two pairs. Okay, what have I got left? Got ones underneath. I've got 14 times 16 on top. Okay, so 14 times 16. Perhaps I need to go over here and work out what 14 times 16 is. 6 4s are 24, 6 1s are 2 and 1 8. Bring the 0 down. 414. 84 is 12. Look at that, $224. Okay, of course it's the same answer. What do you prefer? This one gets you straight there, one go. This one takes you 2 steps. This one deals perhaps with smaller numbers. You might prefer it, I don't know. I prefer method 2. I'm going to show you another example. It'll be a decrease example, and we'll do that 2 ways as well. Okay, another money question. We've got $63. We're decreasing it by 20%. We're taking 20%, $63 is decreased by 20. So perhaps there's a discount, there's a sale on, okay, whatever. Let's have a look at method 1. Method 1 would have us find 20% of 63 and then subtract it off. Method 2 would just do it in one hit. Okay, so let's have a look. Method 1. So we would find 20% of $63, and then we'd subtract it off. So we'd go find, so that would be my first step, find. Okay, here's my working. 20% of 63, like this, and that's equal to, what are we doing? We're doing some simplifying. I think that's as good as we can do, isn't it? Because that's, yeah, it is. So now I have 2 times 63 is 126. Oh no, there's a 210 there. What have I missed a 210? That's 5 and that's 1. So now I have 1 times 63. So I've got 63 over 5. And we get 63 over 5, which is 12 3/5. But in terms of money, that is 12 6/10, or $12.60. There we go. Now that's the decreased amount. So what we need to do now is we need to reduce $63 by this amount of $12.60. So then we've got to go in and take 63 and subtract $12.60. So $63 minus $12.60. So perhaps you subtract 13 and you get to 50, and then you add the 40 cents. So it's $50.40. $50.40. So we've reduced 63 by 20%. Method 2. All right, method 2 just does it in one hit. Now, what's this saying? Remember, 100% of $63, no change. We want to decrease $63 by 20%. So we're stripping 20% off $63. So when we increased by 40%, we found 140% of 63. So we added on to 100. Decreasing 63 by 20% is to find what we're actually asking for here. Another way of asking this is to find what 80% of $63 is. It's the same question. What's 80% of $63? Because we're taking 20% off it. We're just taking 20% off 63. So 100% is 63. We just want 80% of it because we want 20% less. Okay, so if you like the sound of that, then we can just do this in one hit. 80% of 63 over 1. Let's get our cancelling pencil out. I've got 5 2's there and 4 2's there, and that's about all I can do, I think. So I multiply out, I get 4 times 63, which is 252 over 5. If I work this out, 5's into 252, I've got 55's in 250, 2 remainder, which is $50, 50, and this is 2/5 or 4/10, $50.40. There we go, $50.40, $50.40. So which one do you prefer? It's up to you. I'm going to give you some practice now. It'll come out of exercise 3I. Good luck with that. If you've got any questions, then pop them in the forum, or let's talk about it when we get down to our Zoom sessions. Okay, see you soon.